All right, we are streaming to YouTube. We're ready when you are.
Okay. I'll call this March 10th, 2025 City Council meeting to order at 7 p.m. Chief Nickel, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll call.
And before I call roll, I just want to state for the record that Mayor McClure is excused tonight and running the meeting will be Vice Mayor Osenga. With that in mind, this is the roll call for tonight's meeting. Warner?
Here.
Barnwell?
Here.
Wells?
Here.
Kreitz?
Here.
Finch?
Here.
And Vice Mayor Osenga.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, next we have citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and please state your name and whether you live inside or outside city limits. Mr. Clerk, is there anyone signed in to speak?
There's one person signed in to speak, Rhonda Hubbard.
Just remember to state your name and whether you live inside or outside the city.
Sure. Been here before. Rhonda Hubbard, inside city limits. I just wanted to mention, I'm glad Sue's taken a break. I don't think she's missed a meeting forever, so she's definitely earned it. So I wanted to comment on the upcoming resolution 2525, and I wanted to urge council to postpone that and just to encourage a more fiscal conservative approach. In the background and justification, it notes that it said the council desired to proceed with an application of a new revenue bond through the Alaska Municipal Bond Bank Authority. Now, I think that was somewhat misstated in that was a work session with lots of information presented, and I really suggest that council take more time to digest that information and the options after another request and review of a budget pro forma from the department that has maybe a 3 to 5 year outlook, and cash flow statements from all city departments, including the general fund, that illustrate existing cash deposits and or investments that the city is holding. And as we know from the budget process, we know it's a lot. And also during that work session, no one questioned a dubious rate of 12% that the city would charge if it were to finance this expense or even part of it in-house. I don't believe there's any such finance policy that exists there. We need to see a budget pro forma given now that we have a new dynamic presented to us from the cruise ship dock / EPA battery bank grant, new metering infrastructure, and now more bonding versus what we could save by financing these purchases in-house without raising electrical rates. If you recall, the last time we did a bond, it was promised that we would not have an increase in electrical rates, and we ended up with a 6 cents increase per kilowatt hour. With bonding, we have an additional loan fee, bond reserve cost, if you will, plus we're encumbering the city of a bond promise with no flexibility, prepayments, or even a write-off option. Be reminded that SMIC receive services from the electrical department at 0% financing. So it would just be nice to have this without more costs and have that flexibility. Having a bond also gets us in the way of a potential utility sale in the future, or transferring the utility into a co-op, unhinging it from the city completely, which this and future councils really need to be mindful of. We have plenty more things we could bond. We need a new police station. We need a fire department. We need new city shop relocation. So I just really, again, urge the council to postpone this resolution and do more due diligence and research. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda. Mr. Clerk, anyone else signed in?
No one else has signed in.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak? Go ahead.
Phil Kaluza, Inside City Limits. I too would like to talk a little bit about that resolution 2525 regarding bonding for the continuing infrastructure improvements. I guess I too would like to see some economics on what is the long-term, 20-year cost of bonding versus using our internal funds to fund this. I look at, charging interest on ourselves is not really that much of an expense compared to when you bond and that interest leaves town. When we finance ourselves, it's just money going from one pocket to another, and it's still staying within town. So where the 12% came from, I have no idea. When we're only making 2 or 3% on our investment, I guess it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that we would go that route unless we have some, a real study done that shows what the costs are. I guess the other thing I wanted to get into was, every rate study that I've ever seen, they always talk about cost causer should be the cost payer. And as we've done so much of a good chunk of this infrastructure expenses was to upgrade our electrical system for more capacity. Well, all of the existing ratepayers, we still had 300% capacity. There was no need for the existing ratepayers to upgrade our capacity in our system. The only reason that's being done is obviously looking forward for the cruise ship industry. But, currently right now we are paying a higher, rate to help cover those costs. And I certainly hope down the road as we get into coming up with a rate structure for the cruise ship industry that we keep the cost causer, cost payer in mind, because all of that expense really is attributed to that adventure. I guess the last little thing, again, I always like to look at economics because that's sort of what I've been doing my whole life. And we have to look at need versus want. We needed to do a lot of improvements on our system, that's for sure. But do we need smart meters right now? Is it going to lower my electric rate to have a smart meter on my house? I would certainly prefer that we get all the things that we need to get done first, and then look at the things that we'd want to do later. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to make comments? Go ahead. Yes, Christine?
Christine Casagrande, Inside City Limits. I would just like to reiterate everything that Rhonda Hubbard and Phil just said. Thank you. And please postpone and have more discussion about Resolution 2525. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chrissy. Anyone else wishing to make comments at this time? Okay. Seeing none, it's time now for, next is the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. I will need a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. Does anyone wish to make any changes to tonight's agenda? Councilmember Wells?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to remove Resolution 2025-027 from the consent agenda for discussion, please.
Okay. Are there any other changes from anybody? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, can we have a vote on the agenda, please, as amended?
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda as amended. Werner?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Osenga.
Yes.
Your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and approved on the consent agenda were the February 24th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes, the introduction of Ordinance 2025-004, amending Seward City Code Title 7 Campgrounds, Parks and Open Spaces, and Title 11 Paid Parking to clarify day use areas, campgrounds, and other reservable areas are subject to parking enforcement. And Resolution 2025-026, authorizing the city manager to enter into a service agreement with Premier Construction LLC for portable toilet services in the amount of $54,564.73 with a 10% contingency and appropriating funds. And lastly, to reappoint Mike Britton to the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council for a 2-year term.
Okay, thank you. Well, that brings us to, I believe, in-person reports and presentations. The first report will be from City Manager report.
Yeah, great, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So, the mayor, Councilmember Wells and I got to head down to Juneau last week, whirlwind of travel already, to visit with some of our legislatures. We met with Representative Stutes and Senator Gary Stevens and talked about a lot of the issues that we're facing in our community. We also met with our representatives from across the bridge. Wow, I'm blanking on Representative Elam, and sorry, I'm blanking on the name, Jesse Bjorkman as well, sorry about that. And it was really great to meet with all of them as well as others and to thank them for all the work that they're doing for us in our community and advocate for a lot of the different issues that we see in the Seward area. So really wonderful trip, and a thank you to the mayor and Councilmember Wells for traveling with me as well. And on the flight, they got a big shout out to the Tsunami Bowl winners. So I wanted to make sure to give a shout out to the Seward teams who came in 2nd and 5th this year at the Seward, 2nd and 4th this year at the Tsunami Bowl. So really exciting to see 2 Seward teams this year and them do really, really well. I told the Juneau team on the flight that they better watch out next year. And that's all for me.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments about the City Manager's report? Okay, seeing none, next is the City Clerk's report. Mr. Clerk?
So our report is a one-page flyer on page 46 encouraging applicants for the student exchange to Obihiro, Japan. And I will turn it over to Deputy City Clerk, who is also our sister city coordinator.
So we have out the flyer that's in your packet. That is the Sister City student exchange information that is going to be posted, online and then also at the schools for current freshmen, sophomores, and juniors this year. Next year, they will be sophomores, juniors, and seniors when they go to Obihiro. So we select 4 students to go, and we have the applications and the website are updated, so it's all on the website. You can also see pictures from our last year's exchange on there, so just to highly encourage students to go to this. It's really fun. As some of you adults have gone on the adult delegation, I got to attend it with the students last year. They had a blast, and the dates on here are August 8th through the 18th. The 8th is not a travel day. The travel day is before that, but the 8th should be when we are in Obihiro. So the dates, most likely they're not set in stone right now because Obihiro has to finalize it, but that will most likely be the dates of the exchange due to the timing of their events that are going on over in Obihiro that they like us to be a part of. So, any questions?
No questions or comments? Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry, Bob. Did I miss Bob?
No, I was late. I just missed how many kids get to go.
4 students get to go.
And then will we have visitors come again to Seward this year?
As far as I know, we will have 4 students coming, but
Awesome.
of course their process is a little bit, it starts a little later than ours do because they have a lot more high schools to pull from.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So,
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Then we'll move on to the next is the City Attorney report from Cody George.
I'll slide over here so the mic picks me up. Cody George, I know you guys normally see Sam here. I'll highlight just a couple things on the report. I'm the one primarily working on the electric utility, so we are moving forward with the Railbelt Transmission Organization, which is the state legislature mandated legislation to pool all the transmission costs together. So we have a filing before the RCA right now to get a certificate of public need and necessity And it's looking like that. We might be able to get that without a hearing. RAPA has agreed with the RTO to file a stipulation to hopefully, get it the thumbs up without, a big hearing. And then July 1st is kind of the date we're still pushing forward towards. So there are quite a few meetings that will make, I guess, more decisions and kind of start getting those bigger pieces of what's in, what's out, are coming up in the next month or two. So it's exciting and definitely a good opportunity for Seward. And then we also continue to negotiate with Chugach on getting a new wholesale contract. So we're getting pretty close. There have been quite a few things in the electric utility world right now, so Chugach has been a little slow to get back to us, but we're hoping to get that in place here fairly soon. And then the last thing I have, which didn't make the report because it came in after we sent it to you guys, but we got enhanced attorney fees in the McDonald case. So that order came in. I have a copy of it if anyone wants to see it. And yeah, so got more than the regular fees, so it's exciting. And we're still working on kind of closing it out and collecting those. Any questions?
Councilmember Wells?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I thought, maybe this is to administration, but I thought that I had read in the packet that we received somewhere in the ballpark of like $10,000 in attorney fees. Is this in addition to that?
I think this is that.
That,
Yeah,
okay.
It's $10,820.
So it did make it under the wire onto your report,
Oh,
but
yeah,
it's
it
still
did.
super
I was like,
exciting.
okay.
No, I thought it came in later that day, so
Oh, well, thank you
I
very much.
guess it did
Thank
make it in.
Councilmember Barnwell?
Yeah, thank you. The LaRoe vessel was moved. And
Yep.
Do you have an update, or do you know any details on what's gonna happen to that thing?
So we emailed his attorney, and we're trying to figure out next steps. They're working on the underside right now to make sure it's patched up and seaworthy, and they're still kind of deciding what route they're gonna go, if they're gonna try and airbag it further onto the property, or if they're gonna try and get a permit and float it out sometime this year. So it's still progressing. We're still working with them and trying to figure out their timeline so we can make sure, it's either secure if they're gonna work on it, or kind of push them towards next steps.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments from anybody? All right, thank you, Cody.
Thank you.
All right, next we are at presentations. There are no other parts on that. Yeah, okay, presentations. The Seward Company update on the cruise ship dock.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, City Council members, for having us here tonight. It's always a privilege for us to be here in Seward. And my name's Mickey Richardson, and I am the CEO and head up the Seward Company. And then here to my left.
Christy Terry, I'm the Vice President of Real Estate for the Alaska Railroad, and we will be the entity purchasing the facilities once they're completed.
And of course, Christy and I tag team on about everything we do these days, so it's been a fun process to be working with the railroad, especially on this project. So I appreciate, I was told I have 10 minutes, and I think I have 32 slides, so we'll go quickly here. How many have been out to the new facility? No one has been out. Well, hopefully after this meeting you all go. So what you're going to notice when you go out is what is happening right now is we are updating and preparing for the terminal building, which is that block, white block you see on your right-hand side, to be updated. So we're doing the groundwork, and as you know, we have had a very light winter here in Seward, which has been very, very helpful to our progress. So I'm going to talk first about the uplands work, because that's what's going to be happening during this coming year and season, and then we'll talk about the in-water work after that. So they have begun. So if you have not been out, they started moving dirt, and I just also want to do a little quick introduction as well. In the back of the room is Will, and he's the project manager who's moved here to Seward to manage this project from Turnagain, and he's here in the room. But this has been his undertaking to get all the prep work done. And Will's going to laugh at me when I repeat some numbers to you, but essentially the new square footage of the building is basically 64,000 square feet, and they've removed about between 5 and 6 feet of top volume to bring down the grade, so that they can bring dirt back into gravel to reset it for the foundation of the building that will bring it back up to grade. So they've started, and that whole section has been moved. As part of that progress, the updated water line has been done. This week they'll start moving the fuel line as well, so that welding will start happening, and all of that work has been done so the foundation of the building can start. To just give us a little perspective, I love this picture because Will took this with his drone, but you can see that pad, the whole area that's kind of in front of the terminal. What you're going to notice that's different is the existing terminal sits over the water, and the new terminal will sit on the ground or on shore. And I like this picture. However, I thought when I went and stood out there today, it gave me a much better perspective of this is the square footage for the new building. And the old building is what, 22,000 square feet? So, and so when I looked at this picture, I took this morning when I went out there, there's that green box, the area, the boundary of the building. And then you can see the terminal in the back, the old terminal, and that looks very much like a lawn shed in comparison to the new building. So it's going to be a fantastic new facility, obviously much bigger. And what I thought I'd also do is to give a shout out to the team that's been working out there. So we've contracted as much local labor as possible. Medco is out. They've done a lot of the dirt work for us already. Will told me this morning that their entire company will be out tomorrow as they start working to bring the grade up. It will take everybody, the whole company. We're hoping to start pouring foundation for the building the first part of April. And to do that, they'll actually pour more concrete in the entire building footing and foundation than they will have poured in an entire year. So it will double what they're doing work-wise in a single season. So we're very excited about being able to do that. The other thing that you might see around town are these white trucks with the HPM logo on them. Those are our building erection team. They have an office division in Anchorage, and that's who we've contracted to build the building here in town. So you're going to see those white trucks with the green lettering around town as well. And of course, we're excited because that's keeping the jobs here local as well. Just some updated renderings. So as we've started in the process, we've gone through some revision process. A couple things you'll see with the terminal, some different colors than you've seen before. Also to help with the freight and moving freight during the winter months. You'll see that the trussels on the bridge and the transfer span have been removed or raised. So you see those arches in the background, give us a little different perspective. This gets me really excited, this view of the terminal. You're going to see that we've increased the amount of green space around, and we're going to continue to work with the city to work on that walkway that goes out to Port Avenue. It's really going to be a focus of ours as well. But you'll see some beautiful, beautiful green space. I put a little comment here. We started an art advisory group, and which the city will participate in tomorrow. And we are basically trying to come up with the art that's appropriate for the inside the building, also around the building, collaborating with the Arts Council here in town, artists in town, our Alaska Native group, which is Chugach Native Corporation, is involved. And so we're bringing everybody together to talk about what we're going to do. We have a little bit of budget to do that, so we're excited about what that will be. And hopefully the next time when I come back, I'll be able to share with you some of the concepts and ideas of how we're going to integrate art. Some of the cool ideas that came out in our first meeting was about integrating sound into the way that guests exit, to tell story through sound and making that part of the experience, and connecting through the water. And this is really a place that people have met in time from all over the world, have always come here. So we want to keep that theme alive in the art. You also see in this picture that we have the covered walkways, of course, when the weather's not as blue and sunny as it appears in our illustrations, as it always does. I want to make sure that we have covering. Just a little different perspective. You can see a single berth ship there with the transfer span and the floats. The floats right now are being built, and they're being constructed in a series of barges, and they will be brought here at the end of the season. The in-water work will not happen until September timeframe. So you're going to see a lot of that terminal working happening now this season. They'll start pouring, we'll start the erection of the building. They're trying to get as much of that done before the cruise season starts. So, but you won't see anything in the water start happening until really September timeframe of this year. We are still on tap to be scheduled to be done in April of 2026. So we're moving very rapidly. So although the floats don't want to appear in town, when they do appear, they'll be completed and ready to be moored to the mooring dolphins. So it'll happen very quickly once we get into the September timeframe. But also the September timeframe is when the existing facility will start to come down, and you'll see those changes being made to pull the old dock out of the water and update the new facility. So rest assured, Christy has been working very, very hard. And I know it looks like a lot of colors, but really what we've been working with is all of the operators, the people that come bring guests to town, how they're going to move and how we're going to manage construction safely. And I know Christy is going to say, you know, one of the pillars of the railroad is safety, 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 safety. And so we really have focused on how we're going to move passengers, how do we accommodate shuttles, parking lot areas for those that need to work on site, luggage handling, how does that all get moved while we're in the orange space doing construction. So I don't know, Christy, if you want to add a couple thoughts to that.
You know, I just might say we do permit with all the vehicles coming on to the lot, like all the hired vehicles. So we're being very good about communicating all of this ahead of time, working, you know, weeks upon weeks with our stakeholders to make sure that we have full buy-in and communication on what the plan is for the summer.
One of the things that you'll see when you do go out when the season starts is that we have a series of panel fencing that will go in that will separate those that are moving on and off the ship from the construction areas. And then our group on the sewer company side has been tasked with actually creating some artwork for that, so the guests know where to go. You're going to see some of that along the roadway as well and the entrances, just so that people coming into the guest experience will know which direction they have to move and how to stay safe and move safely around the property. So you'll see that go up as we get closer into the season. I shouldn't have put this towards the end because this is probably one of the most exciting pieces of news of the week. And that is that the railroad has worked very, very hard. As you know, their bill, which was this year titled HB 65, went last year before our legislative body. Unfortunately, it did not pass until 8 minutes after midnight, which meant that Christy and the team had to start the process all over again and go back down to Juneau, create a new bill. All of those things happened. And for all of my friends who have been around the state and done these things for decades, said it was a miracle because it happened in record time. Not only did the bill get moved across the legislative approval in record time, but also Governor Dunleavy signed it as well in record time to get the bond process going for the railroad. So, and I know that today, Kat received the pin that it was signed, that the governor signed the bill with. So it's very exciting for us. We've been working very hard to make sure this project stays on time. We've had to go a little bit at risk, knowing that we always intended for the railroad to own it. And with the passage of the bill, that really cements that in the railroad's long-term future. So we're very, very excited about the passage of the bill and the approval by the governor. Just really quickly, I know that Kat can say much more about the EPA grant than I can. The only thing that I might add is that we have worked incredibly hard. Kat and the city has worked incredibly hard to make sure that this money has remained to be available. And I had met when I was in Vancouver a couple of weeks ago with a colleague of mine that's managing some of these EPA grants for other ports, and he said we were the only ones that actually had our game in place and ready to run the minute that thing came online. And because we were moving, he said all of his that he was managing for other cities had actually gone to zero in their portal, meaning that the money had been removed. So we have not, we have been in forward movement, and really thanks to the city's commitment, we're moving forward and make sure that this money stays here in Seward for long term. And it's happening, so we're very excited about that. And we're, again, excited to participate, being the 10% match for the city, so we're still continuing to fund that part And whatever we can do to make this happen and happen rapidly, we've been really focused on that and helping the city manage the process. So all exciting news. And once again, thanks for having us tonight. I went over my 10 minutes. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Councilmember Finch.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Actually, it's a great thing for the tourism aspect of it, bringing local jobs in. It appear, from your diagram, it appears the old coal terminal dock is going to be removed.
No, I think that slide was just for the ease of seeing the facility, but that dock is remaining. So there's no concerns there. That dock will stay.
Okay, because that would be a great dock for year-round access, because at the end of it, fishing, we have a lot of ADA people here that would love to get out and fish, but Seward is not in ADA compliance for fishing access, and that would be perfect. And it could be accessed from, if you could go back to your transportation plan where it shows over the harbor. Eric, Victor. All the parking could be right here and accessed. If that would be possible.
Yeah, and I know, Councilmember Finch, you and I have spoken about that. I think right now we are definitely concentrating on this project being completed and then taking a comprehensive look at the area about what makes sense to.
So that's still on the table?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that slide really, there's no intent to remove a very good dock that's fantastic marine infrastructure for the community that's staying in place. It was just to, as an illustration.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can, Vice Mayor, if I could add one more thing, which is Kat is very good about tasking me with things. And so we, of course, have a great landscape architect on site. And so I told her that, we're looking at how we function around Port Avenue and looking at that area and moving the passengers and walking. So we've committed to do some diagrams and some visuals about what could be done. And I went and looked at it again this afternoon and came up with actually a really good solution, I think. So we are here as part of the, the development team, but we're really trying to provide some other solutions as well to make it more user-friendly and in that area as well. So, Kat, good job for getting some more to work at.
Okay. Councilmember Warner?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just more of a statement. I'm really excited to hear about the partnership between the Seward Company and the Seward Arts Council and Chujack Mew. I think that's going to be really amazing for the terminal and for the guests visiting to be able to feature some of that local artwork. So thank you for that partnership.
Councilmember Burnwell?
Thanks. Welcome back, Christy. Welcome home. And thanks for coming, Mickey. That was a great presentation. I have a few questions, if I could just dig in a little bit. One, I don't understand the relationship between the obligation that Royal Caribbean has with this project. When we say they're obligated for the bond, can you just explain what that really means?
Either you or I can speak to it.
Yeah, so the way that this project was created was by doing what we consider an unsolicited proposal back to the railroad. So the Seward Company worked with Royal Caribbean to get a long-term commitment here to the port. In the industry, we call it a port usage agreement. So it's essentially a contract. And what it does is it guarantees the number of passengers they'll bring for a certain number of years. So with this project, this is a 30-year commitment, which is a guarantee to Seward that they'll come for the next 30 years with a minimum number of passengers of 140,000 per year. The beauty of this, and I heard this today in a conversation I had in town as well, is that infrastructure is extremely difficult, and being in the development space and having another project in the state, it's very difficult to build here in Alaska, as we all know, like infrastructure is hard to do. And then someone mentioned to me today, it's actually even harder to pay for it to be maintained long-term, and which we also think about, because within that passenger agreement, we also include the maintenance of the facility for the next 30 years. So there are things like the float will need to be painted at year 25. Well, we have put all of those maintenance milestones into the project, and then we calculate what that cost will be at year 25, and we basically fund that through the contract. So not only do you have a commitment by the cruise line to come, you also have a commitment to make sure that the facility is as new as it can be at year 30 as it was in year 1. So we're really excited about that commitment. And then, of course, with the bonding side of it, the railroad, and I love to speak on behalf of the railroad, I'm sorry, Christie. But as you've heard them say, when they go to Juneau, like, the commitment is not on the citizens of the state, meaning that they can't go get bonding authority to go buy something unless they have a contract to pay it in layman's terms. So in order for them to get the bonding, we needed to have the contract with Royal Caribbean in place prior to construction.
And I might just add, when Mickey says "we," the peer use agreement is with the Alaska Railroad. So that's the contractual relationship that we have. Once we purchase the facilities, that we'll have a direct relationship with Royal Slaughter.
So that's a minimum of 140, you said, per year? I think we had 140 around last year, right? So that would be equivalent to what we had the last couple of years, I think.
In 2024, there was approximately 188,000 passengers.
Okay, so maybe the minimum we've had is somewhere around 140. Is there a maximum on that?
Through the Vice Mayor to Councilmember Barnwell, there is not a maximum. But I will say, the infrastructure that's being replaced is the same two berths that we have now. So it's not a situation where we're going to have, additional berthing. It's just the same two sides of the berth. Now, you do see that we are future-proofing it because it's a 30-year dock. We're actually looking at probably a 50 or 60-year dock. So we're future-proofing it for those larger vessels.
If I may, as well, is that one thing you have to look at when you look at growth in the industry. Like, those numbers from past years included multiple brands, so that included Royal Caribbean and Norwegian. And as you know, Norwegian opened their own facility in Whittier. So when we look at the growth for Seward, it would not include another brand at this point in time. And then also, for growth to happen in the industry, you also have to look at what we call, downline, which is where they're home porting. And right now, there's not a lot of flexibility in Vancouver for cross-Gulf traffic because that facility is pretty much tapped out. They had another facility they were looking at building, which got canceled just recently. So the idea that there'll be growth in cross-Gulf that would reach to where you were before it will be a while before that would even be in consideration, I think, just looking at the industry trends.
Okay, sorry. This is a great conversation. A lot of people in this town are most of us concede or understand how valuable tourists are to this town. I mean, you can look at our sales tax revenue, and it's pretty clear. But a lot of people are nervous about the amount of tourists in the city. And that's why I'm trying to just dig into this a little bit. And I just wonder if there's been on your part anyways, a calculated study, or maybe the city's part, probably not on our part yet, but I know we're a port of call, and we have some ships that spend the night here during the summer, and I don't know if that will continue. Basically, has there been a study that kind of analyzes what the 10, 20-year projection of tourists in town will be? I know we're capped in some sense by hotel and B&B capacity, but day use versus overnight use, has there been a long-term or longitudinal study about where we're going to be in 10 or 20 years with the amount of tourists in this town, so we can alleviate some of our fears of over-tourism?
Yes, this is Vice Mayor, if I may. So ATIA, which is the Travel Industry Association for the state, does put out a cruise industry kind of by the numbers every year that they project what the growth is for the industry. As you know, most everything downline is capped, like Juneau's not accepting any more ships. They put a moratorium on that, so that really limits the growth as well. And so you'll see those numbers down. Southeast by the Numbers did one recently into the single digits of growth. So very small over the next few years because it's relatively capped. The other thing that, one of the things that Seward has going for it as far as controlling the metering of guests is really that you're not a port of call as a day stop. You're basically a home port, which means that those guests need to catch a flight, right? And they're going to leave town because they can't stay a day because you're capped on the hotel number of capacity in the hotel space as well right now. So you have metering that's happening because a lot of these guests are leaving either by bus or by train Many of them who are going like into an interior land tour are leaving before most people in Seward even get up. So that's the great thing about working with the railroad, is that the railroad has capacity. Even today, there's capacity without adding additional rail cars. We had a conversation with Royal about that recently, available on the train itself, so there's still space to move even more passengers. But really, I always say the secret to life is balance, right, the fulcrum. And so it's really about working with the city. I think you were with us at the Sea Life Center when we came down, and a lot of that's trying to understand from our standpoint, Royal Caribbean's standpoint, as well as how many people do we really need to make Seward a welcoming place, but also welcoming for its residents as well. So all of that is trying to be metered. For the cruise line, they're very focused on not wanting to come to communities and not overstay their welcome. And they're really focused on how do we create more tour products that move people if we need to move them. Does the Sea Life Center need more passengers, more people to stop there while they're here? How do we do that before they leave town? So that's all the balance that we're trying to see.
Sorry, I just had two quick ones. I'm really well known for this.
Okay,
sorry, but I just while we have you, I just want to retort that cruise companies in the past have not been very sensitive to some communities in terms of oversaturation. I'm hoping that the cruise industry is starting to be more sensitive to particularly smaller towns like this, so they don't overwhelm us. Because there is that sense right now of it's pretty comfortable right now, but we're all just like, will we be taken over? And so thanks for alleviating some of those fears. On the building though, quickly, just two quick questions. What kind of efficiency have you built into that system? Can you partition it to heat it? And what kind of efficiency are we looking at in that building?
Yes, so
LEED Silver?
Yeah, they're working on LEED certification and what's obtainable. We have also been asked to provide dividers in the building. We are heating, that's through radiant heat in the floors, is still the plan. There are some giant fans, which they're actually called something not as pleasant, I can't say, but that's what they're legitimately called, to move air and air circulation, these handling systems, which is really impressive. As you can see in the building, on half of the building is open air. That was by design. They enclosed the ends on it to move wind movement. That's so that we can have outdoor space so you can park vehicles during the winter months and it's easy accessible. But the building itself is really a state-of-the-art facility. I know we've put a lot more money into the building, and as far as what we thought was projected to build it, is considerably higher because of some of those costs. So, and the other thing I will add as well is that we'll be around after the meeting. We're not going to take off, so if you have other questions afterwards as well, more than happy to spend a little more time. And I would really encourage you to connect with Will, because Will has his office, which is down in the Connex facility, and he's there every day. But through the process, you can arrange, and I can help make arrangements to get tours of what's happening, so you can kind of see the progress and see what's happening. I'm really excited about it. It's a really exciting building, and it's going to be fun to see it come together.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Vice Mayor.
I did? Okay.
If I might just say real quick, Vice Mayor. So at the next council meeting, I will be back with our engineering department to talk about our freight dock project, which we're also very excited about. And I always want to, prove to this community that we're not just about tourism, we're also about the freight side. So we will see you at the next meeting.
All right. Any other comments or any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, there are no other reports or presentations, so that, and we have no public hearings, nothing in unfinished business, which brings us to new business. Resolutions, we're down to Resolution 2025-025, which is on page 49. Mr. Clerk, would you please read the title into the record?
Resolution 2025-025, declaring its official intent to reimburse city funds used for the acquisition, construction, and equipping of certain electric transmission system capital improvements from proceeds of one or more tax-exempt borrowings. And there is a little note on here that we have moved this resolution to the top of the list because Resolution 2025-024 is dependent on it passing.
Okay, I'll need a motion and a second.
Make a motion for resolution 2025-025.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right, it's been motion and seconded, and I'll turn it over to administration.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So this resolution tonight declares our official intent to reimburse city funds used for the infrastructure project with the intended bond payment, or bond borrowing. And so just to clarify, this does not accept a bond at this moment. It's an intent to reimburse. So the next resolution we'll talk about starts purchasing some of those big lead items so that we can get this project rolling for the summer season. And so kind of some background that we gave last council meeting on the project and the bond itself. Just a reminder that we are anticipating about a 3 to 4% low interest bond, and we'll bring that forward later if this is approved tonight. And just some thought processing from administration that went into the bond versus an internal loan. An $8 to $10 million internal loan would be about 20% of our reserves at this time to fund this infrastructure project, which the administration deemed fiscally irresponsible when a low interest loan is available. And yes, historically, there had been policies ranging anywhere from 0 to 12% for internal loans. Currently, we have 3 interfund loans in the city on the books. One is $500,000 from the motor pool to the healthcare at an interest rate of 5.25%. Another is $733,000 from the parking enterprise to harbor at 2.5%. And the third is $930,000 at a 0% interest from the motor pool to the animal shelter. So if we were ever to do an internal loan, we could choose that interest rate. Did not mean to be misleading in any way, shape, and form. But something to highlight about all 3 of these is that none of them are over $1 million, and none of them come from our general fund reserves, meaning we didn't have to cash out our investments to pay for it. And so when we look at the overall picture of the financial health of our city, cashing out nearly $10 million from our investments is a big task and something we don't necessarily want to make a habit of. So putting a higher interest rate loan is a policy way of making sure that it doesn't happen often. And if you look at it as well as something coming from the general fund to the enterprise fund, kind of mismatching there. And so as we were thinking through whether we wanted to do an internal loan from that, the thought process also came up that yes, we do have a lot of other big projects coming down the pipeline. We have a fire hall that needs to replace. We have a public works building that hopefully will be moved from the Alaska Railroad lot over that we'll need to invest in. And getting bonds for those come at a much higher cost because they don't actually generate revenue. So in this situation, we're able to take a revenue bond at a low interest, thus not adding to the tax burden of our citizens. If you look at forward thinking at these bigger projects, their general obligation, which usually comes with a tax burden. And so these are some of the thought processes that went in behind us recommending this tonight. And so I'd like to reiterate that this does not actually bring forth and bind us to a loan application. It just allows us to reimburse the potential expenses we'll have with the next resolution and further with the bond when it does come through. And with that, I think that's all the notes that I scribbled down. If you guys have any other questions, I'm happy to answer. I won't need an M&M.
Councilmember Finch?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I've got a couple of questions. I've been getting calls all week, curious about this. I mean, we got approximately $60 million.
55-ish. 55 to 60.
55 to 60. Mm-hmm. We don't, in this world, we don't know what 20 years from now is going to look like on a bond. And for 30 years, people have been paying their taxes and their electrical and stuff, and they're wanting to see a return instead of, for 30 years, it's always been, it's for future projects, it's for future projects. That's 30 years of saying future projects. They know the fire hall is going to be bonded. Mm-hmm. It's not going to come out of the general fund. This is $10 million. Mm-hmm. We can be making that payment back, and if we get 2 back-to-back pandemics in a bond, we still have to pay that bond. With 2 back-to-back pandemics, we can sit here and adjust the payments because it's our loan. Mm-hmm. And the people would like to see their money being used for something that they can see. You know, that, you know, if we plan on co-oping or selling down the road, we don't have to worry about paying off a bond or them buying out the bond. They have to buy it from the people. But people have been calling me about where are our tax dollars that's been put away, because they don't even know who's managing it. When are our tax dollars going to be spent on something we can see?
Is there a question in that?
Well, we keep putting everything off on, it's future projects for 30 years that I've lived here. How long is this going to continually keep growing?
Well, the anticipation.
Because every time we bond, we seem to increase mill rate, taxes, electrical, something.
I would say that the intention with the Public Works building is that in the middle of this summer, we should anticipate taking down that building and rebuilding it at the new lot, which will cost a lot of money in the long run, even though the building is potentially going to be donated. So that would be something that we can look forward to in seeing that. And beyond that, if council would like to direct further projects for us to go into the reserves to utilize as well, we would be happy to explore that. But at this point in time, based off of the recommendations previously and the administration's recommendations, we decided to bring forth this rather than an internal fund loan.
Well, and my recommendation is we keep going in debt with bonds, and the locals are paying it year-round. Use the money that's been saved, because we're going to bond the fire department, the police station, and the street department.
And those are all general fund for the fire department and the police station and Public Works. Those would be general fund capital infrastructure investments, while this is an enterprise capital infrastructure investment, so we can utilize revenue for it.
Councilman Barnwell.
I have a couple questions. One, I don't think we're going into debt. This is because this is an enterprise fund. The electrical department is actually responsible for the payments. And from what I've heard, the payments on this 9 million or 9.5 are already in place to pay. And the payments are, I think, less than 500, or less than a penny per kilowatt, I think, somewhere in that range or less.
There would be no increase to rates based off this due to sorry, I'm blanking on the words tonight.
Obligation.
Yeah, due to the obligations, we're able to spread it off of the 20-year time and actualize the funds on the infrastructure project. So based off of our projections and communications, we wouldn't have to increase the rates.
Okay. And then the other one that I can't figure out, though, is how can you get a 3.25% interest in today's market?
That's what the bond bank said offered to us at this time. We have a very good bond rating. We also have a very good city financial cushion in that investment, so we are a good project, and we've also been working with them for a while. That being said, if it came back and we brought an application to you after this moved forward and it was drastically different, we could reassess that. But at this point in time, at a 3% interest.
Councilman Barnwell.
Just to follow up on that, to me it then makes sense if we are paying 3.25, or well, electric department's paying 3.25 on that bond. And we would be pulling funds out that conceivably make somewhere in the 3%. It's a wash. And rather than conflate the enterprise fund with the general fund, this route makes sense to me. I do agree with Councilmember Finch. We do need to start making some investment with our investments. But I think that's coming down really soon. I think that's on us too, but we have this Public Works, we have to get this fire hall figured out, and we have to get the police station after that.
And it'll be bonded, I'm sure.
Councilman Finch. So, can I just get some clarity here? This isn't actually saying we're applying for a bond, right?
It's saying that we intend to reimburse our costs with the bond. So that when we get the bond, if we get the bond at the 3.5 and we approve that later on, this gives us the ability to pay back what we will order later tonight and further on.
So essentially, if we don't get a bond, then we're going to pay that out of our utility.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I just want
So
to.
we have the fluid cash right now to make some of these larger payments, but it's just saying that if and when we got the bond payment, we can reimburse ourselves for that so that we don't lose that fluid cash.
So basically keeping your options open.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a bad idea. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Barnwell?
I think Mr. Kaluza mentioned the metering project. Is that wrapped up into this? I can't remember.
Yeah, so we did include the AMI smart metering project in this bond as well, so that we could replace the meters throughout our throughout our ratepayers with the smart metering that we talked about at the last meeting.
And could you respond to Mr. Kaluza's question, I think, of whether or not would that save us money, and why do it now if we're already fairly leveraged as electrical in that realm?
Yeah, I'll invite Taylor to come up and speak to that, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Great.
Vice Mayor and members of the council. So the AMI metering project is kind of, it's like a boost for kind of everyone in the community. So, we get a lot of calls every week about electrical usage, and with the new AMI meters, everyone will be able to look at their phone and see what their usage is on a 5-minute interval. So we basically read the meters once a month right now, and you can see like what you use over like the whole month. So that's like one plus to it. The other plus is we got these meters from Kodiak, and they were 15 years old when we got them, and their useful life is 15 to 20 years. So we're at the end of the life of the meters, but they're still working fine right now, so not to say they're not, but and then the other things we can do in Phil's case is perform rate studies to see, like, let's say we want a heat pump rate or EV time of day charging rates and all those neat bells and whistles. We can actually come up with different rates and stuff just from studying what's coming in every day. And so it's just a lot more information that's coming into the utility that we can use for future planning.
And what was the price on the smart meter? I can't remember that. Was it 2 million or 1.5?
Well, so the meters and the infrastructure itself is about $700,000. And then you've got the backhaul software, which some of that's kind of a wash to what we're paying for right now. But in total, it's about $1 million. But like I said, some of that stuff is already being paid currently, so it's going to be less, depending on the brand of meters we go with. So we've got the Itron meters, which, not to get in too much detail, but they basically ping each other, and then they go to a collector, and that gets hauled back on fiber. And then you've got the Alclara meter, which they just ping directly to an antenna that you have to put on a really high point, and then it comes back on fiber or cellular. But it's kind of depending on the technology that works best with our terrain and the trees and everything on which one we would go with. But all the different meter companies have really good meters, and they've got different software packages. Like anything else, you get what you pay for when it comes to the software. But everything has more technology built into it than what we currently have. And they talk both ways too. So like, let's say that you're seasonal in Seward and you're leaving for the winter, we can disconnect your meter from the front desk rather than having a lineman go out and pull the meter and boot it for the winter. And then you come back and we can turn it back on.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but when we received the meters from Kodiak, did they upgrade to these meters? Did they upgrade to AMI meters?
Yes.
Yeah, so once again, it's kind of us
moving forward in our progression and becoming a well-rounded functioning utility that best serves our utility ratepayers. We're 5 to 10 to 15 years behind on all of these things, so rather than continue to put it off until we need to purchase them and the infrastructure no longer works, this is us forward-thinking, planning, and getting this done now.
Okay, Councilmember Warner?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just for clarification, without the AMI meters, is there any other way to do the special rates for EVs or heat pumps, or is this the path forward to do that?
There is. It requires like thorough third-party studies to be done. It's been done, you know, in other places, but not in Alaska. And to be honest with you, in 2015, when I worked for Chugach Electric, we got AMI meters. And so in my career, I mean, that was pretty early. I started in 2012. And so my whole working career in this industry has basically been based off AMIs to, you know, perform different studies. And, you know, if you're having a problem at your house, I can kind of troubleshoot it, you know, from my computer. This is the first place I've worked where, you know, that's not possible, but it can be done. It's very costly, and, you know, you have to get rate analysis performed by a third party, and, you know.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Are we ready to vote? Okay, Mr. Clerk, take the vote.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-025. Warner?
Yes?
Finch?
No.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Wells?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Osenga.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Okay, brings us to Resolution 2025-024. Mr. Clerk, if you want to read the title into the record?
Resolution 2025-024, authorizing the city manager to purchase construction material for the electric department for the Nash Road Phase 2 project.
And for information, this is on page 56 of the packet. I would need a motion to approve and a second.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-024.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Administration?
Thank you, I keep wanting to call you Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. So this is the first of several of those purchases that'll come through for the infrastructure project. And I'll invite Taylor back up to speak to the specifics.
All right, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the council, you'll have to excuse me, I'm kind of battling some sinus issues from the family swim night. But, so we're looking to buy poles, conductor, and insulators that have anywhere between a 6 to 8 month lead time. So we would, you know, like to purchase these items for the final 2 miles of Nash Road. So it's basically from the Seward Highway out to Salmon Creek. And really long story short, it's just they're hard items to get. It's better than when COVID started, but everyone's still behind. Getting this stuff shipped to Alaska takes a while, and we reached out for quotes. So we now only have 2 suppliers in the state of Alaska. It's Annixter and General Pacific, and so we reached out to both of them for quotes. General Pacific actually came back lower in all the 3 areas, and so, you know, same exact brands and everything else, so we're definitely going to go with them because better bang for a buck. And they're also kind of a co-op model, so then you get capital credits if they make any profit off of what you bought at the end of the year. So, any questions?
Any questions for comments up here?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
How many poles are there? Or how many poles are you buying?
I believe it's about 50.
Wow. That's some trees.
Douglas fir, treated in Deca.
Any other questions? Councilman Flash?
What is the lifespan of one of those? Because I know the ones on the Salmon Creek have been flooded so many times, I'm sure they're bad, but what is the lifespan of a telephone pole?
Well, I like to judge it by utility pole.
Okay.
But, we depreciate utility poles for 50 years, but I've changed out some poles that were from 1925 just a couple of years ago, so.
Wow. Okay, any other questions or comments from anybody? Are we ready to vote then? Okay, Mr. Clerk?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-024. Wells?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Osenga.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay, brings us to Resolution 2025-027. Mr. Clerk, would you please read the title into record?
Resolution 2025-027, approving the Planning and Zoning Commission priorities for January 2025 to January 2026.
Okay, I would need a motion to approve. Any second?
I'll make the motion to approve Resolution 2025-027.
And I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Administration, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Ask and he shall appear. Danny came down and is ready to speak to this resolution.
Sure, yeah. Thank you, Vice Mayor, Council. I'm happy to speak through, I can run through these real quickly, and then since this was pulled, I'm happy to answer any questions. But annually, the Planning and Zoning Commission will determine their priorities for the upcoming year. They have short-term and ongoing priorities. The first bullet is related to housing. That is a big one we want the commission to continue to look at. And so specifically, a few of the topics we've been discussing are allowing accessory dwelling units to be more developer friendly. And so they've actually already recommended the language, which will be coming to City Council here at an upcoming City Council meeting for introduction and a public hearing. Their next work session will be discussing, continuing the conversation that we had at a joint work session regarding building height in town, and if there are certain areas of town that would still protect the character of our neighborhoods and the view shed, but still allowing some, maybe multifamily units or just higher buildings that would help with the housing crisis. The comprehensive plan is something that our office is spearheading the update to it, and the commission will kind of help us in that endeavor from time to time when we're looking for feedback. I'm excited to say that we've had the surveys out for most of the winter, and we will have 3 town halls to start to share that survey information, and those will be kind of the end of April, trying to get those in before the summer busy season. So April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th, that is a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so yeah, we'll probably have the commission help out with a little bit of that information. We don't have exact dates or locations and times yet, so just be on the lookout, but we'll share that information as soon as it is available. The update to the Planning and Zoning Rules of Procedure document, I'm excited to say that this has already been accomplished. When I started, understanding the process for the commission was a little daunting at first. The most recent document was last updated in 2014, and so we spent a lot of time updating this because there's been a lot of just procedural questions throughout the last year that we've had to rely on reaching out to the city attorneys, who've been great to help us navigate those, but hopefully we have a better foundation for that. Parking requirements, this does kind of relate to housing in some aspects. I think we just want to look through all the parking requirements in town. We do have a lot of empty lots in town that are used for parking agreements for like hotel conditional use permits that just aren't super necessary at times. We have for hotels, for example, we have a 1 parking space per room ratio, which, looking at our current numbers and how people are traveling to Seward, is very excessive. And so if we kind of decrease some of those parking requirements, that could free up more space for other types of developments. And so we want to do kind of a big overarching parking conversation, looking at the process for the conditional use permits, just kind of revamping that a little bit. We've been educating the commission a lot about, so they wear 2 hats, like they're legislative side to the commission where they're making recommendations to you all as council. They're also a quasi judicial body where they're making decisions for the rights of individuals, and those would be like conditional use permits and variances, and those are things that only go to you as council if those are decisions are appealed. And so there's differences in terms of what like for a legislative matter, a commissioner can speak to their constituents, visit property. They can't do that for a quasi-judicial matter. That would be considered ex parte communication, and so that was one of the more difficult things that we had to kind of educate them on. If there's a conditional use permit around a certain property, technically they can't go visit that property because all of a sudden they have more information than the rest of the council, than the applicant, and that just gives them an advantage in the deliberations. And so are there things in the conditional use permit process that we can do on the back end to give them more information to help them be better qualified to make their decisions? Because I think at times they've expressed to us some difficulties in making those decisions. You know, maybe it's just going out and taking some photos of the property for them. And so we kind of want to look through that process to help with that. And then they always have concerns about putting conditions on these permits that aren't enforced, and I know that's kind of difficult we don't have a code enforcement officer, and I don't know if that's something that we can do as a body with the commission. They just asked that language be put in there. Sign code, this is an interesting one. It was one of my first work sessions. It lasted over 3 hours, and we kind of decided that what do I want to say about sign code? It wasn't a huge priority compared to all the other things that are going on. Historically, this is from before I started, sign code was brought up because I think it was, and the mayor's not here, but I think she asked the department to look into some of the ambiguities with the awning language regarding signs. There's also the temporary signs, mainly around mobile vendors and transient merchants, that there was some confusion on. And then there was a Supreme Court ruling, Reed versus Town of Gilbert, which basically said that you can't regulate a sign by content. You can talk about where a sign goes, how big it is, but once you start getting into regulating a sign based on what's on it, that gets into free speech and is not allowed, and our code hasn't been updated to kind of reflect that. And so those were kind of the 3 pinpoint issues, and we're happy to kind of revisit those, because I think we're almost there with those, but then it kind of turned into this whole revamp, and our office felt there were other priorities, and so we're fine keeping it as a priority if we can kind of pinpoint those. That would be good direction from council to give to the commission on that. And then the review of the municipal lands inventory and management plan, which is typically something that the commission reviews regularly. And then these ongoing priorities are just, titles 15 and 16 are the titles they have purview over. So if there are things that come up throughout the year that we want them to look at, or you as a council wants them to look at, you can direct that towards our office. And we're happy to do that. And then just some of the other just bigger plans. We're working with the Seward Bear Creek flood service area on projects. And then the last one is, I have an education background, and so we've talked about trying to throw in some different mini educations into their training, because we don't have a lot of interest in people wanting to serve on the commission. So I'm not looking for people that have city planning backgrounds, but if that's the case, we want to make sure we're setting them up for success. So I think that rules of procedure document was helpful for that. Our next work session next Tuesday, Courtney, our city planner, is going to do a how to read a plat training session with them. And so just I worked in Maritime, so I teach people how to read charts, but it's kind of a similar thing for the planning world. And so we're just trying to, understanding our commissioners aren't coming in with this expertise. I'm just excited that they're interested, and we want to make sure that we're doing more ongoing mini training. So we'll try and do that almost monthly with them at their work sessions. And so, sorry, that was a little longer than I expected, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I pulled this from the resolution for discussion because of the CUP issue or discussion, and the sign code discussion. And my concerns is that I'm all for making it the sign code and the CUP code to be easier to use. What I'm not for is creating a bunch of red tape that makes it more difficult for our community to grow. And the main reason why I brought it up is because in 2024, there was a P&Z commissioner that stated they wanted to implement a CUP for a certain type of industry so that when it came in front of the P&Z, they could just deny it. And so my concern is about over-creating this CUP process in order to prevent certain industries or certain constructions because you don't want it in your backyard, you don't want to see And so if this is to simplify code for more progress and more development, then I'm all for it. So that's why I wanted to bring it, so I could make that statement. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councilmember Barnwell?
I just comment that it's obvious you guys are really doing a lot, and I'm really impressed with your department, planning and the, both of your departments are just doing a great job, and I really appreciate it. And the town hall, I'm really looking forward to that. I think it'll be really interesting. So thanks for doing everything you're doing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those for sure.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Or are we ready to vote then? Okay.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2025-027. Wells?
Yes.
Kreitz?
Yes.
Finch?
Yes.
Barnwell?
Yes.
Warner?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Osenga.
Yes.
That resolution has been approved.
Okay, that brings us down to information letters and reports. You find Providence Financial Report on page 66. We have upcoming city council meetings. We have a council work session about Forest Acres of Fognac subdivision Monday, March 24th at 5:30 p.m. And then we have a city council meeting that evening at 7 p.m. And that brings us to citizen comments. There is no sign-in for this comment period. Time is limited to 5 minutes per speaker. So if anyone wishes to speak, raise your hand and Chrissy, come on up.
Christy Casagrande, inside city limits. The last meter exchange that we had was gently stated a hot mess, and I'm looking forward to this administration, if that does come about, applying meters to all persons fairly. And I know that there was an issue with our software that it doesn't appear has changed because our bills haven't changed. Past administration said that that was the big clunk that was happening, is the software wasn't easily programmed, and it was a mess. And so I just encourage you guys to look into what went wrong in that last exchange so that this next exchange again can be applied fairly to all citizens, and that it doesn't cost us. It cost us a lot. And so I know $1 million was mentioned that the meters would cost in the software, but is it going to be a private contractor? Are we doing it in-house, and how much more is that going to cost us? And I also want to give kudos. Planning and zoning is probably really sick of me being their number one cheerleader, but I am just like in awe of our planning and zoning administration, our commission as a community. We need to stop and pause and be really grateful that we have that commission and this administration before us in these hot times of all this land opening up, with our developers being reimbursed with incentives and with industry expanding. It's just a really, really positive place to interact with and do business with. And if anybody has a chance to participate in this comprehensive plan from the public, I highly encourage them to reach out to the community development. They're always wide open arms to answer questions and get involved, because this is a really monumental time for us as a community. And also watch the planning and zoning commissions. They run smoothly and get a lot done in a short amount of time. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment at this time? Nobody? Okay. Guess we'll bring it back to council for council comments. Councilmember Warner?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to thank everybody that came and made public comment today. And thank you, Vice Mayor, for running a smooth and efficient meeting. It's spring break, so keep an eye out for kids during the daytime and enjoy some extra daylight.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Kreitz?
I would also like to thank the sewer company and Alaska Railroad for coming and giving the presentation. I honestly did not realize that ground had broke, so I'm excited to go over there and look at that. And thank you for planning and zoning about the town hall in regards to the comprehensive plan. Definitely looking forward to being there. And in case everyone doesn't know, Chugach will be opening the new facility on April 1st, and we are planning on having an open house, I think about April 21st. There'll be some information about that. So I encourage you to come by and look. It's a awesome building.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Convention.
I just thank everybody for coming out and speaking. I enjoyed talking to Christy Terry and the update on the sewer terminal. You know, I've been out there, and yes, there's a lot of dirt moving, so it's, I drove by and I seen that, and now I know that's where the building's gonna be, and that is massive. So, I thank everybody for coming out, and drive safe.
Okay. Councilmember Barnwell?
Yeah, thanks sewer company and former Mayor Christy Terry for coming down again. You guys have been great about communicating in this town, and I really appreciate that. And it seems to be you're pretty darn frank with your answers, so I appreciate that. And it's phenomenal what you guys get done in the amount of time. I mean, I was out there I think a month or a half. It just seems like I was just out there, and there were the poles out there, and all of a sudden all this earth has moved. So kind of reminds me of Japan during COVID with that new hospital. You guys could compete with, China. Remember when they put that hospital up in 3 days? No. Anyway, sorry. I differed. Obihiro students, if any high school kids are listening, which I can't imagine they are, but their parents are, that's an amazing opportunity. Do it. You will not regret it. Those of us that have been to Japan have never been the same. Congratulations to the Seward High School Tsunami team, coached by Ms. Van Busker. Really awesome work. Also, the Seward High School basketball teams did really well last week, and congratulations again to the Seward High School athletes. Holy smokes. And yeah, Town Hall, comprehensive plan Town Hall on April 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. It's very exciting, so thanks.
Councilmember Wells.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll echo everything everybody has already said, but I want to give a huge shout out to our amazing city manager. Last week was my first trip to Juneau during city business, and it's such a turmoil time right there right now. You know, when you walked into somebody's office, you could just see it in their face. What are you bringing to me? And it was really, really incredible to get to go down there and be the shining star of the state of Alaska right now, and to go down there and just say thank you and not ask for anything. But then the amazing part was listening to these legislators, to these senators, to these representatives talk about the communication with our city manager. Just made me sit there so proud, but then hearing how she spoke so professionally back and forth with these legislators, we really looked top notch. So all I want to say is thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I please jump in and say one thing that I've been wanting to say all the time too? I would like to, if we're in shout out session, I'd like to give a shout out to the admin at the clerk's office for replacing this bulletin board out here. If you notice, the one leaning up against the wall was installed in 1978. So we are very excited to have a new bulletin board that is less than 50 years old, so.
Kevin wants to reuse it.
Sorry, I forgot about asking administration for their comments. I apologize.
And that was, oh, I'll give a comment as well. The chess tournament this weekend is at the Seward Community Library, and we still have some space open for that if anybody wants to be involved. And if you're interested in watching some super high-level volleyball, the Tony's Invitational will be at AvTech this weekend, and it's always really fun to watch all those volleyball players from Anchorage and beyond in Seward compete. But yeah, and a big thank you to everybody.
Okay.
Flustered.
I'll start off with, Rissy, I agree. I hope that our upgrades for our meters go seamlessly and trouble-free. I agree with that. Thank you to Mickey and Christy for your cruise ship dock update. That was very informative. And also I'd like to encourage students to look into participating in the student exchange program with Obihiro. It is an eye-opening experience when you participate in that. Good luck to I think basketball is still playing, so good luck to the state, they're going to state, so good luck to them. And that's, and of course, Mayor McClure will be back at the next meeting, so we'll be back to normal, and I'll be sitting over here not saying anything, so. Thanks, everybody, and with that, I will close this meeting at 8:26.